Good afternoon and welcome to another installment of Forever Young. I'm your host, David C. Linton, and this is the program that celebrates life for those of us who are on the other side of 50. As I always like to say, they say life begins at 40, so everything up to this point is a dress rehearsal, and now we're really into that push. Life is in stages. You go from birth to 18, you kind of find yourself, then you go through the 20s to 30s, and that's why they say life begins at 40. So once you get after 40, you're not really over the hill. You're in the real fast lane of life. But then when you get to 50, there's another transition. And so we are the group that talks about life in all of its stages. And when you break it all down, age ain't nothing but a number. It's all about a state of mind. And I'm joined by two lovely ladies who exemplify that. One, we call her beautiful because that's what she is. And that's none other than the Miss Jean Hendricks. How you doing, Jean?
I am well, David, and thank you so much for those adjectives as you introduced me. You are just fantastic, and I'm so happy to join you again today. Back to you, David.
Well, thanks. Well, it's my pleasure. I'm always lucky to be the only guy in the group, so I'll take that. And of course, the lady who keeps us all together. She's one of the co-producers of the show. She was responsible for getting our guests and making sure that everything held together. I call her the glue, none other than Dr. Sharon Mitchell. How you doing, Sharon?
I'm doing great, David, and always a pleasure to be sharing this platform with you and the beautiful Miss Jean Hendricks. So excited about our show today.
Yes. And today's show really is a part two. Those of you who joined us last week, we were talking about life's purpose. And, sometimes people think, well, with age comes wisdom, and I've seen it all. But, life is a journey. And our guests last week talked about that journey and how we deal with life in stages, and how when you get into certain stages, you have different equipment that you need. Well, one thing we need to get our show started is those pearls of wisdom from Jean. And I know she has something to set the course before we get back to our guests. So, Jean, what do you have for us this week?
Yes, Davis, I'm always ready. And the title of this one is Born with a Purpose. So God strengthening us so we can make it for someone else, divine something. So then we can learn and be stronger. I can say we are all born with a purpose that's going to be fulfilled if you let it. In order to build the needs of the kingdom, are you ready to walk with a purpose? Back to you, David.
Well, that's a good one. We ended with a question. And so someone who helped us to answer that question is our guest who's come back for us for part two. And that's Ms. Mondre Ashley. She is a life coach, and she is the owner of an organization called Coaching Instinct 3 LLC. And so I want to bring her back to the stage with a quickness, and welcome back again.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's good to see you all.
It's good to have you back. And again, we were talking last week, just for those who are tuning in for the first time who weren't with us last week, we've been talking about life coaching and the need for a coach. We kind of find out the difference between a life coach and a psychiatrist, or women need both, and so if you can just kind of summarize what life coaching is for those who weren't with us last week, and then we can begin to delve into, and of course, a little bit more about your background, because so I want you to do all that in a little capsule.
Okay, we'll try to make it in 30 seconds or less. Yes, I am a certified life coach, and I believe that individuals, once they reach a point in their lives when they feel like it's time for a change or transition, and they feel like they're stuck, then I am that person that will be there to walk alongside them, to help them to get over that hump, to help them to get to that next level in their life, to reinvent themselves, to be able to transition to that next stage in their life. And as you said, age is nothing but a number. So it doesn't matter what age you are in your season. You know, God, if you still have breath in your body, God can still use you to do something.
Amen.
So I just want to, you know, hopefully that's just a little capsule, as you said, of what I am capable of doing.
Well, you know, well, thank you. I think those, you know, we talk about, like I said last week, you know, when people first started talking about life coaches, they, you know, we see the people on TV and, you know, people wondering what they life coach. And so, you know, you talked about you being you're more like a coach who goes through the journey versus being a consultant who's just trying to get it in. You're trying to help a person make some time with transformation. And as we get through different seasons in life, we will need those kind of transformations that we need, and we may need a help, and there's nothing wrong to ask for help. But the thing that, you know, the elephant in the room that we've all lived with for the last 2 years has been COVID. So I want to know, how has COVID changed what the services you, or are you seeing more people needing you? Because now we're seeing a lot of people are not returning to the workforce and they're trying new things. How has that affected your industry and your life and your job and your profession?
Well, actually, it has had a positive role effect on my business, because I was actually set up to be virtual prior to the pandemic. When God told me to open a business back in 2018, I was kind of leery about doing it because, you know, my vision was brick and mortar. You know, you get an office, you have a space, and people come in and you see them face to face. But, you know, at the time, of course, you know, I wasn't financially able to do that, but he said no. And, you know, now hindsight is 2020. I can see why he said no, because, you know, a year and a half later, if you will, the pandemic would come and, you know, the world would be shut down. So I was already in a position where everybody else was scrambling, businesses were closing and so forth. And so my clientele was able to grow even more so based on the fact that I was already providing the service where people didn't have to leave their homes to come in and get the help that they needed. So I just believe that, you know, that was already preordained, and it was just so good how it just, everything just flowed. And I was able to just continue to walk in that process and be available for people, you know, whenever they needed it.
It's amazing.
Well,
Deacon King Kong, very good book. It was one of Oprah's book club selection, and it just takes you on this, Jamie Bride takes you on this wild ride. It starts out just right there. I mean, book opens up with somebody getting shot.
Are we doing spoiler alerts and all that? The money from the church, where was that money? I want to know where the money was.
It's kind of like open-ended, and, you know, I like a good satisfying ending, especially if I read the book or listen to it for 17 hours or something like that. So,
Hey, let's check out this park. Oh, wow, that's really cool. To find a great local park or forest near you, go to discovertheforest.org.
What type of encouragement or something you would tell single people dating? Because
social media is not permanent. Social media is artificial. Learn how to be yourself with a person. Be honest
and know your worth. And I will say this: quit valuing yourself like a Rolls Royce, but you showing hoopty mentality. You know, you parading around like a hoopty. Because real men, somebody worth something, we not looking to take a hoopty home.
Ashley, what would you like for us to know about your business? For those of us who don't know what counseling is.
So just to kind of get it in a nutshell, there are a few things, that is misconstrued with life coaching. Again, it's not counseling. I don't deal with trauma and so forth. And I don't diagnose individuals. But once you've come to that point in your life where you feel like, hey, I've got to do something different. I don't know what that different looks like, but there's something that has to change. And some of the things that a life coach does in the process of sharing and walking with the individual in that journey is them discovering who they are, what they can do, what they've been doing. And then we just build upon that. Sometimes we have to redirect, and sometimes we have to, push people. I like to stretch individuals, and sometimes that doesn't feel good. That's not comfortable. But I always tell people, just like a rubber band doesn't get its use until it's stretched. There's no use for a rubber band unless it's stretched, and it has to reach that capacity in order for it to be effective. So that's where we push you. We try to get you to that point where you say, okay, I know I've come to this point where I have to change. I have to do something different. So as a coach, some of the things that I share with people as we're walking through the journey is let them know that, yeah, we're going to plan, we're going to set goals, but keep in mind, you're going to encounter obstacles. You're going to encounter challenges. You're even going to have some setbacks, but you're going to have the wherewithal to push through that. And this is what we're going to do together. And then secondly, I like to let them know that it's not going to happen overnight. So you may not see it in the first 30 days. You may still feel like, hey, I'm where I was when I first started talking with you. But if you can just stick with it, then you're going to eventually get to that point where you need to be. And then lastly, we have to take it one day at a time. I always say that we can't jump ahead. We have to stay where we are in that particular day. You can't take over your cares till tomorrow before tomorrow gets here. So we like to just take it one day at a time, because if you look too far ahead, you get overwhelmed, you get frustrated. So just stay in that moment, and we'll walk together. And then when that time comes, and it's almost like, you'll know when it's time to shift. You feel it. And then once we get to that point, then we'll shift gears to whatever's next.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
Yes,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was hearing the principles. The principles that you're sharing are very, very biblical. And I know that you present yourself as a Christian life coach. Can you kind of speak about that a little bit? What makes that different for you versus someone who does not base it on Christian principles?
Yes, and I'm so glad you asked me that. So now I get a chance to share a little bit about my testimony. So, I alluded to when on the first segment, I told you God told me to come out of corporate America and to start working. To stop working and come out of corporate America. And during that time, like I said, it was all good, the first few months, but then I started to feel unfulfilled, and it went on for about a year or so before I actually I went back to school to become a life coach. And I experienced a lot of struggles. I had some deaths in the family, and some financial issues, and some health issues, just a whole bunch of things that was going on. I'm thinking, God, hey, this is hard. And so as I started to embark upon my life coaching degree, and once I graduated and got my practice, one of the things God told me was, and to answer your question about what makes me different, he told me I'm going to be different because of my authenticity. I will be able to coach from a place of experience, a place from the journey that I've gone through, the various aspects that I had to go through, that I'll be able to share with individuals that will have similar issues. And it wouldn't be based on a textbook. It won't be based on training. It won't be based on the clinical research that I had to do. All of those things, yeah, I can tie it into, and I may be able to incorporate some of those things, but mainly my authenticity is because of what he took me through, so that I can be able to help somebody else. you know, how I overcame and how I was able to pray my way through and how I was able to fast my way through all of those things. So he said, you're going to be authentic. Yes, other coaches will be able to help people based on how they sing things, but you're going to be able to do that because of your authenticity of how you went through. And then secondly, what makes me different is I am a prayer warrior. I war for my clients. I intercede for my clients. I pray for my clients. And I don't do it just after we meet. I do it while we're meeting. And then after our sessions, you know, I follow up with them. So my availability to them, I do have boundaries where I don't allow those lines to be crossed, but I'm available for my clients. And I make sure that they are covered. They know that they are covered. They can text me, you know, during the week and say, hey, I'm having this issue. Can you pray for me? And sometimes the Holy Spirit will put them on my heart, and I will even send them a text and say, hey, you need to do this, or I give them a scripture or something. But those are the two main things that makes me different, that sets me apart from somebody else, my authenticity, and I am a prayer warrior.
Amen.
That is
great. I love it.
You've just answered the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of our questions right there.
No, I can talk about that all day.
Yes, ma'am. Sure enough. For real.
And I say that, and I just want to say that because, you know, we have these slate of questions. This is for our audience, just for transparency, as we say. Because one of the things we were going to ask was, what tools do you use to help your clients reach their goals? And you just said the fact that not only are you using your education, but you're also using your spirituality and your relationship with God and helping them to get to a different place. And that's, you know, that's important. No matter what we do, you know, with this program, we talk about everything that we need at various stages. And there's one thing that we never run away from is the fact there has to be some type of spiritual grounding. And so what you said was just very good in your testimonial. So I think we did talk a little bit about what, you know, how COVID has changed things with your profession. So what are some other things how do people get in contact with you, for one, you know, and how does a person, I want people who weren't with us last week to really understand, to when do they get to identify the fact that they need a life coach and not feel bad about it, you know, because especially within the African-American community, maybe because of the TV life coach, we feel a little better now, but we do have so many phobias. We don't talk to people, especially people who are older, who maybe feel isolated, you know?
Right.
So how does that process go?
Well, I mean, of course I can give you, you know, the ways to contact me, but I just wanted to give some insight on coaching. If we look at it, because in our African-American community, we tend to relate to getting help from someone as therapy. And so we tend to shy away from that word. And so coaching is not therapy. You know, I'm not providing you any diagnosis and trying to psychoanalyze your mind and all of that stuff. I'm just basically, you know, that person that's just going to sit with you and say, hey, where are you? And it could be something simple as, I had a client the other day that said they're trying to find some peace. They just need some peace. You know, can you help me, you know, walk through this? I've had multiple challenges and I need some peace. And so my first question to her was, what does peace look like for you? And she really didn't have an answer. And she said, well, and I said, don't answer that. But in order for you to achieve and obtain peace, you need to know what that looks like. Because how can you obtain something when you can't recognize it? If you don't have any idea of what it looks like, because you can have it and you don't know you have it because you don't know what it looks like. So just simple things as just getting people comfortable with where they are and letting them know that, hey, this is positive. this doesn't have to be a secret, because it's not like you're sitting on a couch and somebody's going to give you medication and you're going to be on some, blacklist. It is, that's why I like to compare it to a sports coach. That sports coach that you have that's going to be there for you, that you can call on, that's going to push you, that's going to encourage you. All of those things are the same as a life coach, with the exception of it's dealing with your issues that you encounter in life. And you can reach me, by social media. You can email me. And then I'm sure we'll put that information up later on. But I'm very accessible. I'm very flexible. I'm Monday through Friday, some weekends. It just depends on what you need and what you're looking for and what's your schedule. I'm pretty flexible. So, yeah.
Today, we're talking about caregiving and self-care.
My heart goes out to caregivers. When she was caregiving for her mom, she didn't take care of herself. And unfortunately, a year after I met her, she died because she didn't have the same type of care that she provided her mom and that she showed me how to provide to my father. You have to take care of yourself. I heard someone say that caring for someone who once cared for you is one of the highest honors you can give.
I love that. I think about my parents and they raised me, like you said, and now we help them.
To Sofia and Gabriel. Even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
One of the things God told me was, and to answer your question about what makes me different, he said, you are going to be authentic. Yes, other coaches will be able to help people, but you're going to be able to do that because of your authenticity of how you went through. And then secondly, what makes me different is I am a prayer warrior. I war for my clients. I intercede for my clients. I pray for my clients.
You've just answered the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of our questions right there. Let's talk a little bit about trusting God in dark times. Tell us about that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Okay. So my book that I just released back in November, again, another testimony. So the past 7 years, I walked out of corporate America in 2014. So the past 7 years, I have been journaling. I journal my thoughts. I journal my day. I journal what God says. When I read his word, I journal what I've read. I journal what he said back to me through the scripture. I journal revelation, all those things. I journal when I feel bad. I journal when I feel happy. I journal when I'm depressed. I'm journal when I'm elated, all of those things. And so about 2 years ago, I heard the Lord say, write a book. And again, I fought because I'm not a writer. I didn't consider myself a writer. I don't like to write. At one point, I didn't like to read. But when I went back to school, he allowed me to write all those papers. And I believe he was preparing me for that moment to be able to write that book and put it together. So trusting God in dark time is just basically a compilation of journal entries that I've had that God has allowed me to write over this past 7-year journey. So what individuals are reading is either what God said to me or what he wanted me to share to them through that journey, through that process that I went through during those 7 years of anxiety, 7 years that I experienced hurt, that I experienced rejection, that I experienced, pain, health issues, loss, all of those things. So when you get the journal, and I'm sure you will, so I'm putting a plug out there, Trusting God in Dark Times, go to Amazon.com. But when you get it, you'll see it's truly God speaking what he spoke to me, but he can speak to you through me because everything is backed up by his word. Whenever he gave me something, he always had his word to confirm whatever it was that he was telling me. So that's how the book came about. It's just journal entries that he's given me over the past 7 years. I literally had like 30 journals that it was spread out all over my room that I had to go through. It took me a long time for him to show me which ones to put in this book. So it's 365 days worth of word from him.
Wow.
Wonderful. That's great.
Wow.
Well, ladies.
Okay, go ahead, Jean. I'm sorry. You had a question?
No, I was going to. She mentioned that she just recently spoke to a lady who was not, who was asking about peace, and I was going to ask her what other kinds of topics do you deal with? What do people come with you? What type of problems or concerns do people come to you with, other than this lady seeking some type of peace?
Sure. I have individuals who need assistance with communication. They want to improve their communication skills. They want to improve their public speaking skills. I've had couples that want to improve their intimacy. I've had people that need help with their budgeting. I mean, it just the simplest thing, you know, and again, it's not that the person, I think you mentioned it earlier and maybe in the last segment, that something is wrong with them. It's just, they just need a little help to get that best out of them. So it's not for, say, for example, the couple, it's not that their relationship was in turmoil. It's not that they were on the verge of getting a divorce. They just had some issues communicating. So, you know, we went through a series of several different things that we walked through to get them to become better communicators. Or, you know, that mom that's a single mom and she's having trouble connecting with her son because, you know, the father is absent. And so she needs to be able to relate to her son. So different things. Again, it's not because you're torn down, you're busted, you just totally, there's no hope for you. It's just one area in your life that's going to help you get to that next level. So at the end of the day, she became a better mom. At the end of the day, that couple became better for each other. You know, that person was able to stand before an organization to be able to improve their public speaking. They got a promotion. So, you know, different things will come of that. And that will help them so that whenever they get to that next step, they're ready, they're prepared.
Good. Wonderful.
So
Thank you.
So I have a question. Since you talked a little bit about African Americans not wanting to ask for help, that certainly holds true for those of us in our C's and our golden years. Is that something that you can still overcome? Do you have clients that are older, or what would be your recommendation for people who are older who are looking for life coaches?
Yes, ma'am. I do help. I just recently got a client over this last week. She's turned 60, and one of the issues that she's trying to overcome is a potential health diagnosis. So, and it's just her being able to either accept, you know, whatever that's going to look like in the future and how to cope with it. And so we're going to walk through on how to, you know, go through that next stage of her life and offer some type of, you know, clarity and understanding and so that she can cope with and not just be able to live with it, but be able to thrive. Because oftentimes when we get that bad news or, you know, we feel like we've come to a certain age that there's nothing else for us to do. But I think I said it earlier, as long as you have breath in your body, God can still use you. He can still do something through you. He can still do something with you. And it's just a matter of you finding out what that is. Now, it may not be the same thing that you're accustomed to. You know, if you're used to working 40 hours a week, you may only be able to do 20, or you may not be able to do any. You might have to start doing volunteer work, something, but we're going to find something for you to do so that you can feel valued, so that you can feel important, you can feel fulfilled. And so that you can feel that you're still worth something while you're still here. That I know sometimes we look at other people and may see that they're doing different things and we feel like we can't do that anymore. And we may not. And we have to be honest with ourselves and realize our limitations. But once we realize our limitations, there's still something that we can do. You know, we're not just going to lay down and die, but we're going to find out whatever it is we're going to do and we're going to maximize that. And so as a coach, that's what we're going to do. I'll pull that out of them. You know, I like to probe. I like to ask questions. I like to kind of delve into their identity and what they've been doing, what their strengths are. And we don't focus on the weakness, but we capitalize on their strengths. And so that's what I think one of the things that is very helpful when I'm dealing with individuals that are more mature. I like to use that word instead of
Yeah.
I like that too. You know what? I like that word too.
Yes.
I do too.
You know, it's a lot of maturity in this room. Again,
That's right.
This has been such an enlightening conversation. These last two shows, and those of you who are just tuning in, you're about to miss, but you can always go and watch all of these programs on Hope TV. But again, we are here every week to just talk about things that come to people in life. And you know what? A lot of the things, as we've done these programs, we learn they're not just for people who are over 50, but they're people under, because these are we deal with life issues. And something, you know, my mother, my father, and my grandparents, you always heard the things say, keep on living, right? So
Yes.
if you keep on living, you're going to see some of these things come to manifestation.
Exactly.
So, Montre, we're just really happy that you took time to spend time with us and our audience today to talk about life purpose and fulfilling life's purpose, and to let people know that it's okay to get a life coach, and that your purpose changes. And as the Bible tells us, there's a time and a season for everything. And we have to always recognize the season that we're in.
Right.
And when you recognize the season that you're in, you make the adjustments and you can enjoy it, because, you know, people, you got to grow up sometime. You know, like you said, the mind says you want to do something, but your body tells you something different. That's
You're right.
what it's all about. So we want to, people, if they want to get in contact with you, you can go to Coaching Instinct. That's COACHE Instinct, ENC 3, right? Instinct3.com. And she's on social media. You got a social media handle where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Call to Coach Trey, and that's with the number 2, Call to Coach Trey.
And so,
or you can email me at mashley@coachinginstinct3.com.
So again, we want to thank you for sharing your expertise and your light but informative conversation. Again, as always, I'd like to thank the beautiful Jean Hendricks for being here with us, and Dr. Sharon Mitchell, and you for joining us each week here on Forever Young. On behalf of our production crew at Hope TV, our executive producer, Dr. E. Dewey Smith Jr., we want to thank you all for tuning in. And remember, life ain't nothing but a number, and you are forever young. Until next week, take care. Bye now.
Deacon King Kong. Very good book. It was one of Oprah's book club selection. And it just takes you on this, Jamie Bride takes you on this wild ride. It starts out just right there. I mean, book opens up with somebody getting shot.
Are we doing spoiler alerts and all that? The money from the church, where was that money? I want to know where the money was.
It's kind of like open-ended, and you know, I like a good satisfying ending, especially if I read the book or listen to it for 17 hours or something like that. So,